Hello everyone, my name is Cade Dial, and today I'm going to be talking about Apis mellifera scutellata and the cause of their aggression. So to start off, Apis mellifera scutellata, otherwise known as the Africanized honeybee, they originated in Africa. Farmers in Brazil brought over an African honeybee in the 1950s to increase their honey production. When 26 of these bee population swarms escaped captivity and mated with European honeybees, creating what is now known as Apis mellifera scutellata. Much like the European honeybees, they are cavity nesters. They are limited to regions of low altitude and cool winters, and they are very defensive, which I will get to shortly. Before I talk about their defensive behavior, I'm going to talk about honeybee venom and what exactly it is. So, in essence, it's a complex mixture of enzymes and polypeptides. The enzymes, you can see there's about 8 of them, of which I will not try to pronounce because I will butcher it, and the polypeptide melittin. And when combined, they create honeybee venom, which is harmless to humans in small doses, but can cause allergic reactions to heart failure or suffocation from swelling around the throat if stung in that area. Bee venom is not all bad, though. It has been used to treat patients with heart conditions, degenerative diseases of the nervous system, multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's. And one thing to note is that bee venom of Apis mellifera, or the European honeybee, is almost identical to that of Apis mellifera scutellata. Now, the main question that I want to answer in this presentation is what causes Apis mellifera scutellata to be so aggressive? A biochemist named Mario Palma at Sao Paulo State University in Rio Claro, Brazil, had this same question. So him and his colleagues swung a black leather ball next to an Africanized honeybee hive and collected the bees who were sent out to defend the hive, as well as bees that were still in the hive. They froze the brains and then sliced them up to see the proteins that were inside the brain. And in these bee brains, they have the 2 proteins, allotestosterone and tachykinin, which is found in all bees. But what Mario Palma and his colleagues found was that the aggressive bee brains broke down those 2 proteins into a neuropeptide, while the bees still in the hive did not have that neuropeptide. So their theory was that this neuropeptide was what was causing the bees to be so aggressive. And in order to test this, they injected those neuropeptides into young docile bees, and they quickly became aggressive, much like the bees that were sent out to defend the hive. So their theory was correct. Another thing to note is that these neuropeptides have also been found in fruit flies and mice. So now we know why Apis mellifera scutellata is so aggressive. And as I mentioned before, the venom inside of these Africanized honeybees is the same that's in the docile European honeybees. Another question I have is, why is Apis mellifera scutellata so dangerous? In order to answer this question, I have a comparison between the European honeybee and African honeybee in 3 different factors. The first factor being their swarming behavior. The European honeybee swarm 1 or 2 times per year, while the African honeybee can swarm 10 or more times a year. The European honeybee swarms are larger and need larger volume to nest, while African honeybee swarms contain fewer individuals and therefore a much smaller cavity is needed. The European honeybee rarely abscond or completely abandon the nest, while African honeybees abscond often and relocate to more suitable nesting locations, meaning that the African honeybees are moving from location to location a lot more often than the European honeybees, meaning that they are more likely to be interrupted or messed with by an outside factor. The second factor in this comparison is their nesting sites. The European honeybee nests in large cavities around 10 gallons in size, while the African honeybee nests in small cavities 1 to 5 gallons in size. The European honeybee typically nest in dry, above-ground cavities, while African honeybees will nest in underground cavities with a high moisture content. The European honeybee nests in protected locations, rarely exposing the nest, while the African honeybee will nest in exposed locations like hanging from a tree branch. The European honeybee has a larger colony size, so the nests are often easier to detect, while the African honeybee have a smaller colony size and nests often go undetected, meaning that they are more likely to be disturbed by humans or other animals. The final factor, and the one that I think is the most important, is the defensive characteristics. European honeybees may send out 10 to 20 guard bees in response to disturbances up to only 20 feet away, while the Africanized honeybee may send out several hundred guard bees in response to disturbances up to 120 feet away. The European honeybee, once agitated, will usually become calm within 1 to 2 hours, while the Africanized honeybee may remain defensive for days. A disturbed European honeybee colony may result in 10 to 20 stings, while a disturbed Africanized honeybee colony may result in 100 to 1,000 stings. As I mentioned before, honeybee venom is relatively harmless to humans, but the likelihood of being stung 10 to even 100 times more by an Africanized honeybee attack is what it makes these bees so dangerous. To show just how dangerous Apis mellifera scutellata is, here are some numbers to give you some perspective. More than 1,000 humans in Brazil since the 1950s have been killed by these Africanized honeybees. 175 humans have been killed in Mexico since 1985, and 7 humans in the United States have been killed since 1993. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation over what causes Apis mellifera scutellata to be so aggressive and why these bees are so dangerous.